Welcome to Turner Classic Movies, open all night. Jane Gale stars in the landmark silent drama about the white slave trade called Traffic in Souls. Then Donna Reed falls for head coach John Wayne, in trouble along the way. And the coop is full of fine-feathered Allied spies in the pigeon that took Rome. Turner Classic Movies is preening its plumage all night.
If you're known by the company that you keep, then walk down the streets where your shoulders can brush up against greatness. It's a celluloid city with a million stories waiting to be told, where the pulsing pace of life is 24 frames per second. Feelings are viewed in black and white. Your dreams are in Technicolor, where luminous faces burn into your memory and emotions cut deep into your heart. You don't want to sleep. You'll never want to leave this place. Turner Classic Movies.
This is the way you usually watch a movie on TV. But what would you say if we told you that part of the picture is missing? There's nothing wrong with your TV. What you see is called letterboxing, a technology that makes the movie image look about the size of a letter in a number 10 business envelope. What you get is more picture than ever before.
I think that it's one of the benefits of letterboxing is that you're going to see it as it was originally intended to be.
I think people have a kind of a knee-jerk reaction that, geez, my TV got smaller or something, or there's something wrong with my TV. What I would say is, relax. Just take a second, you know, don't turn the channel right away. And these are all good movies and better seen this way. And look at what you see on those edges. Some nice stuff.
Sure, with Letterbox, the picture may look smaller, but you're not getting less. You're really seeing more. Why? Ask these well-known movie directors and they'll tell you.
Practically every film I've made, I wanted to do widescreen. But I was not able to because I knew that by the time it got to television, it would never be shown in the right way.
To me, it's no difference than changing a performance of an actor. It's all part of the makeup of a scene. And any aspect of it that's changed is not my vision, so it's somebody else's vision. So in that case, they shouldn't really either credit or blame me for the film.
I'm a purist in that regard. I mean, I believe that any work that's been created should be preserved as best it can in its original state.
In the 50s and 60s, before the era of the VCR, staying home and watching TV became a national habit. Hollywood fought to get viewers back in the movie theaters with new widescreen formats like CinemaScope and Cinerama, where 3 projectors created an ultra-widescreen look. When these blockbusters finally made it to the small screen, TV had the last laugh. Any widescreen movie loses a third or more of its image in the confines of a TV picture tube.
It's a little bit like reading the book and say, well, we're going to take 25% of this book away here because it was too thick.
A case in point, How the West Was Won.
How the West Was Won, I remember seeing as a kid. I think to try to watch that without doing a letterbox is almost to be watching, you know, only part of the West.
So that what happens when it gets onto television, without letterboxing, you're only going into maybe half that frame. You're only seeing half the image. And very often you see a person on the right side of the frame talking to no one else.
But letterboxing gives you back a lot of that image. In this scene, instead of Carl Malden talking to no one in particular,
out of the well, and so help me, the bucket was full of rocks. Rocks!
You get to see who's listening. And this scene goes from being a joyride to a full-scale attack.
One of my favorite films of all time was How the West Was Won. I've tried to watch it on TV since then, and it's just, I can't really watch it because my recollection of that experience, all these incredible images. And then when I was getting ready to do Far and Away, I got How the West Was Won and screened it. And, you know, it's really great. It's just some great sequences and very exciting and beautifully composed and great acting.
Now, can you imagine watching the famous chariot race from Ben-Hur any other way?
And what happens is when you don't see it letterboxed, it becomes a blur. It becomes a blur of chariot wheels, horses' legs, heads, people. You don't see what they did. You're not doing justice to probably one of the greatest pieces of filmmaking in history.
Since then, widescreen has become the standard format for virtually every film made. And now with Letterboxd, the Wild West world of Westworld gets even wilder. The desert vistas of The Wind and the Lion fill the screen from end to end. And now you get to see more of Elvis than ever before in Jailhouse Rock.
The famous Jailhouse Rock song has to be seen widescreen. And when we saw that when we were kids, and that widescreen was black and white at the time, it was extraordinary because you begin to see, the choreography.
So the next time you see a Letterboxd movie on TCM, take a closer look, and you'll begin to see what you've been missing.
It's terrific because the movies can be experienced as they were intended to be. It makes good movies have a kind of lasting value like a good novel. That's something that really excites me as a filmmaker.
Don't miss Hollywood's greatest widescreen films shown in their original format, only on Turner Classic Movies.
Dames, dazzling displays of dames, geometric patterns of dames, tap dancing platoons of dames. That's the Busby Berkeley style. From the depths of the Depression to the glory days of the movie musical, director Busby Berkeley created lavish productions like nothing else ever seen on film.
Busby was a creative genius. Busby actually invented the musical as we knew it then.
Busby Berkeley came to Hollywood from Broadway in 1930 to choreograph Eddie Cantor movies for Goldwyn. But it was at Warner Brothers that his genius really flourished. Beginning as dance director for the backstage musical 42nd Street, he created numbers that never would have been possible on a real stage. But it wasn't just the choreography that made Berkeley's numbers so spectacular. He only used one camera, but he made it do things it had never done before. He invented a unique monorail system to enhance camera dimension and mobility. He even drilled holes in ceilings for his famous overhead shot, causing one angry executive to exclaim, "Now Berkeley's going through the roof."
Busby Berkeley would have a man with a rope tied around his waist, and he'd go up into the ceiling of the studios, and he'd be looking through the finder of the camera, and oftentimes he'd step off into nothing.
In 1939, Berkeley moved to MGM and continued to work his magic, beginning with a memorable series of musicals with the studio's singing and dancing sweethearts Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney. The energy the couple projected on screen and into audiences' hearts came directly from the enthusiastic spirit of Busby Berkeley.
Buzz gave you that. He'd look at you before you'd take it. He'd say, "All right, here we go, kids. Here we go. Get ready. Quiet, everybody. Let's have fun doing this one."
But others learned that behind Berkeley's energetic style lurked a driven perfectionist.
He was tough. I mean, if I'd say, "Mr. Berkeley, I've got a blister. My foot is hurting. Can I stop for a while?" He'd say, "Nope. We have to finish this." He
very dangerous to work for because he didn't really care whether you got killed or not. The thing was, get the shot.
And Berkeley got the shots, plenty of them. But by the mid-50s, his extravagant entertainments were out of style and too costly to produce. The musical's reigning master was directing only special sequences in other people's movies. But even then, he could still create a spectacle. His last film was 1962's Jumbo, and the magic still worked. Before his death in 1976, Busby Berkeley saw a revival and renewed appreciation of his work. Gene Kelly said, "If anybody wants to learn what can be done with a camera, they should study every shot Busby Berkeley ever made." And Berkeley himself summed up his career by saying, "A lot of people used to believe I was crazy, but I can truthfully say one thing. I gave them a show."
Go through the roof with our 7-picture birthday tribute to Busby Berkeley. Wednesday beginning at 6 a.m. Eastern, only on Turner Classic Movies.
You know, in the entertainment business, people come and people go. The true test is to have staying power.
And by the way, this is the movie in which the famous Gable mustache was born. The first time that line of hair had appeared above his lips, where it soon became a permanent addition to Clark Gable.
He knows all the movies. Who got paid what, who didn't get paid.
It seems to me that Robert Osborne knows everything about everything that happens in Hollywood.
He knows it all, sees all, and tells all.
Robert Osborne. His unique insights are just one more difference between classic movies and Turner Classic Movies.
Well, he's very good looking. I think he's cute.
Robert, keep on doing what you do for Turner Classic Movies.
Hi, I'm Robert Osborne, and our silent Sunday night feature this week is a film called Traffic in Souls. It was released in 1913, and it's a film most people today have never seen or even heard of, but many consider it a milestone in the history of sex in the cinema. It is part advocacy, part exploitation. And Traffic in Souls is also a view from more than 80 years ago of a social problem of that era, the so-called white slave traffic. And what was that? Well, in the early years of this century, thousands of immigrants were coming from Europe to the U.S., many of them extremely poor and with no education, and many were young girls. So some unscrupulous fellows managed to take advantage of that situation. They'd be nice to the girls and eventually lure or abduct many of them into prostitution. The practice was especially prevalent in New York City, where so many of the new arrivals entered this country. Well, eventually, a government commission headed by John D. Rockefeller concluded that police corruption was also contributing to the problem, inspiring activists to clamor for legal reforms. Several Broadway plays were later based on this sordid issue, but this next movie, Traffic in Souls, was the first full-length film to deal with that subject. Created quite a stir, grossing almost $500,000 back in 1913, becoming one of the first films to prove that indeed sex sells. Now, something you should know when you see this film, the actors in the movie coming ashore at Ellis Island, those aren't extras in the background. They're real immigrants. The director of this movie, George Lone Tucker, had his actors working on the real Ellis Island. And the movie also gives a fascinating glimpse at what the Big Apple looked like in 1913. So have a look. Here's Traffic in Souls.